Well, hello. I'm walking around after my physiotherapy, and I'm thinking about these books I've read in the last 6 months on Trotsky, Lenin, Stalin, and Winston Churchill. I read another one on Abraham Lincoln. So these are big-time leaders of historical proportions. And it's really had me thinking a lot about, degrees of evil and the qualia, or the qualities of evil, various kinds of evil, whether evil is evil, if it's an absolute thing, or whether there are degrees of evil. There's no doubt that the way Winston Churchill went about his business was a lot different from Joseph Stalin. Uh, Stalin's was a murderous regime, hard to justify, cultish in scope, hard to believe that that the Bolsheviks, that the people involved could have just accepted that culture, but they did. Of course, for centuries, culture has been cruel in various ways, but the point is we have to remember that whether there's absolute evil or not, degrees of evil, when we do something wrong, let's say the better side does something wrong, the infinitely better side does something wrong or evil on occasion, for whatever reasons, good reasons or bad reasons, they're still evil, they're still bad, destructive. They don't help anything. Also, if there are systemic and structural causes of the evil, the mistakes that a country perpetrates on its people or other people, other nations, it has to be addressed and sorted out. And if the system can't address it and sort it out, then something will happen. Either it will degrade and get worse and worse over time until it falls apart to whatever degree, or there will be a revolution of some sort, because there's pushback usually. And people like Joseph Stalin don't last forever, and Winston Churchill. There's always going to be another regime behind the old regime, another leader after the old leader. Are they going to be better? Are they going to be worse? We don't know. So it's important to think about these things. It's not good enough to just say, oh, well, our side is just infinitely better than the other side. Also, goods and utility. What's your argument for your goods? And what's the utility? In a new context, is it still as good? Is it still as utilitarian? Is it still as virtuous as the value sets in the old context? So you have to think in terms of context. It's fascinating. I mean, I can't get it out of my head. The rule of law, the system. One can argue that the British East India Company did a lot of mean and evil things, or the British Empire was not for the greater good of the universe. It also brings me back to understanding in a Jonathan Haidt kind of way why people with certain proclivities or sensitivities or perspectives or attitudes or ideological bents get pissed off at neoliberal liberals when they try to tell them how to live, or try to tell them that they're stupid or racist if they don't want to do things the way they're supposed to, if they want to be more traditional or whatever. But that doesn't excuse willful ignorance or just ideological stubbornness. These are problems, but it's easy to understand why some people are pissed off at liberals for wanting them to get with the program. And the program that any side has at the moment is far from perfect. There are things that have to be improved in all of them. But it's not fair to just write them off. We have to learn how to understand each other in that Jonathan Haidt kind of way, and to have dialogue and to communicate with one another and recognize what's important to each other, and then address how we might be able to come to some coherent consensus on how to move forward and live with one another. Can you have 1,000 points of light peacefully coexisting? Many traditional cultures? Or do we all have to become Star Trek for there to be peace? I mean, we all just get with the Orwellian program, or the Huxleyan program. Or we all are damned to hell, or do we all have to believe in the same sect of Buddhism or Christianity or whatever to be saved, to live a good life? Or can we coexist with each other across cultures and across the planet, do trade, cooperate with one another, compete with one another without having to kill each other all the time? So I guess we have to learn to accept that there are going to be differences between us, and that we better learn to understand, evaluate, and appreciate those differences, even if we don't like them, even if we're in opposition to them. And we have to know when it's important to push back, when it's important to go to war, and when it's much, much better just to understand each other and live and let live. So China and the United States, for example, is very integrated in terms of the economies, right? And the global economy. They actually need each other. They actually can't exist without each other at this point. Or if one of them disappeared, it would be a hardship on the other one, that's for sure. And yet we compete. And yet we have the regimes, the government, the style of government is different, and they have a lot of conflicts in their ideologies and so on. But they need each other. They coexist, whether they want to or not, doesn't matter. It's important that the United States and China are there, living in opposition and yet intertwined. And is it better for us to figure out a way to continue that partnership, that friendly competition, or to push each other to the brink of war or to war? What good does the conflict give us? Who benefits from it? Who makes money off of the dead, off of the soldiers, off of the poverty, off of the lack of ability to provide health care, and so on? I mean, who benefits? What players are getting something out of this? And we have to look through the propaganda and the bullshit and what we've learned and experienced, and ask these questions, and then decide, is that what we're going to put up with? And if we're not going to put up with it, we have to find a way to push back. So yeah, you have a wrongdoer. In the case of Russia, you have action-reaction leading up to the event of the invasion, which is indisputable, and then you have the pushback and the escalation and the starvation and the economic hardship that's global, and on and on and on, the death, the rape, the evil. Do you want to learn something from that in the modern context, in today's context, or do you want to just fantasize about some other period of history? Or do you want to repeat the same mistakes when it comes to China? increase rhetoric about China, Taiwan, create a self-fulfilling prophecy, push each other to a conflict that doesn't benefit anybody. It's interesting to me that powerful Americans can be cruel to their own people, just like powerful Russians can be cruel to their own people. Powerful Chinese leaders can be cruel to their own people. If you're not a player, you're nobody. You know, you're cannon fodder. You're taxpayers. You're batteries. You take a pill, a gray one, a red one, a blue one, a pink one, a woke one, and wake up. I mean, yeah, they're almost more evil to their own people than they are to people outside. But you need those outsiders to justify the evil that you do to your own people. So we're fighting the revolution. If we don't purge the reactionaries, then we're going to lose the revolution and the whole world goes to hell. You know, if we don't do this, there won't be any freedom and democracy in the world. I hope you get my drift. These are the questions. William T. out. No wonder it's blocked off. They're chopping down trees up here. Man, that tree went down. I wanted to walk to the wine museum, but it's blocked because they're cutting down some trees. The arborers are doing their work. Normally this is a really nice walk. Go along this behind the decathlon, just winds along this river forever and ever. I don't know if it's the Alku or the Bassa River. There's two rivers in this town, and this is one of them. And you can walk along it for miles and miles. But not today.